You are listening to CCA Radio. Live in English to live in English. Brought to you by Centro Colombo Americano. CCA Radio.
I just wanna hold you. I just wanna look into your eyes and tell you that I want you. You know you make me feel so alive. Can't stop thinking about you day and night. Love it when you kiss me, love it when we touch. Every time I'm down, yeah, you make me smile. You're the solution. You are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are. You are the solution. You are the solution. You are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are. You are the solution. You are the solution.
Hey, good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 14th of August, and this is CCA Radio, live in English to live in English, brought to you by Centro Colombo Americano, Óyeme UJTL, and Poly Radio. My name is Janet Van Dieren. I am the General Director of Centro Colombo Americano here in Bogota. And I am joined by the usual suspects. I haven't seen you guys in a while. I've been away.
Yes. Welcome back.
I kept sending you messages on Facebook Live to tell you I was actually paying attention while I was
Great to
off
know we
gallivanting.
We couldn't believe it. You should be on vacation, not paying attention to us.
Well, okay, honestly, I wasn't paying attention because
You were just
I
riding.
I went into Facebook, saw that the show was on, sent my message, but I didn't hear. I have no idea if you responded to me. I assume that you did because I am the boss and stuff. But you know,
shout out to you.
So yeah, I missed you guys. Missed Bogota. I was off gallivanting in the U.S. I hope you heard my little capsules from Boston. It was a great pleasure to be back in Boston after so many years. Great town, beautiful place. But we're back. Pedro Lutz, it's a pleasure to see you.
Hello, Janet. Hello, Danny. To our listeners, viewers on Facebook Live, listeners in Óyeme UJTL and Poly Radio, we have a great show prepared for you today. You have a listen to, if you're a regular listener, you know that Janet loves football a lot, soccer a lot. But today we're going to talk a lot about something that she knows a lot as well.
Oh,
It's one of those topics that she is really the expert.
There's a background on this one. But first, Danny Valderrama.
Good morning, Janet.
Sup?
Good morning, Pedro. It's so good to have you back. It's really good to be, again, the originals, I would say. It's
That's
really
right.
nice to be together. And yes, we have a very cool topic for you today.
Yeah, there's a lot going on this week in Bogota. It's a super interesting week culturally. And we'll be talking about those things further on. But let's head straight into our usual section called This Week in History. An interesting week, not to say fascinating, but interesting. Again, we're talking about the week of August 12th, so Sunday through next Saturday, which is the 30th week of the year, leaving 22 to go. Time flies when you're having fun, and I'm having a blast. August 12th. On August 12th, this is a good one. Isaac Singer was granted a patent for the Singer sewing machine. Like, who, especially when I was like a kid, whose mom, at a certain level of income, obviously, didn't have a Singer sewing machine in the house. Even my mom couldn't sew to save her life. May she rest in peace. But we had a sewing machine.
How cool.
My mom is one of those moms. My mom has... Okay, my mom... My mom...
What about your mom?
Designed... No, this is a big shout out to her. Designed and made both of my sister's wedding dresses.
No way. She made their
How
wedding
cool.
dresses?
Oh.
When my older sister decides to get... I'm going to do it.
This is like expert level.
it
This
took-
is like
no.
sewing like a boss.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
really good.
6 months that there was no dining table in our house because that was where everything was happening. And it was this.
Okay, but
sewing
honestly,
machine.
were they nice dresses?
Yes.
That's kind of impressive.
And
Yes.
YouTube was not around to say
No,
that she just
it was
copied
no
it from
YouTube,
someone.
but it
on a
was
video.
the
How
singer's
cool.
sewing machine. She did everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So shout out to Isaac Singer and to Pedro's mom for
Absolutely.
the sewing machine and for wow, that's kind of impressive.
It is. Yeah.
And meaningful even. Okay, 1865. Something else super interesting. A English doctor named Joseph Lister performed the first antiseptic surgery. Lister. What do we have that may be named after Joseph Lister?
Listerine.
Listerine, or as we call it here in Bogota, Listerine, because it's an antiseptic mouthwash. So shout out to Joseph Lister. On this day on August 12th,
It's a
1898.
good way to make history. I mean, you did something, and the rest of humankind will remember.
Well, they don't
won't
really remember him, but they.
But-
but his name is there.
His name is there.
It's a legacy right there.
Because okay, no offense to Dr. Lister, but when I think of Lister, I do in fact think of hygiene and things like that. And when I think of Lister, I actually think of anti-hygiene, which so sorry, Dr. Lister. You're up there wherever you are going. I hate you. Okay. On this day in 1898, the Kingdom of Hawaii ceased to be the Kingdom of Hawaii because Hawaiian sovereignty was transferred to the United States of America, which is kind of funky when you think that Hawaii is really wicked far from the mainland.
Right.
But hey, my brother lives there.
And it must be a cool, beautiful place to be. But,
Well, as long as you don't live near those volcanoes that are still erupting, and there still are cracks in the ground where lava is coming out. A lot of people have lost their homes, so shout out to people in Hawaii. This day on August 12th, 1964, South Africa was banned from participating in the Olympics because of apartheid practices, and we've talked a lot about apartheid. We've talked a lot about Nelson Mandela and changes in the world. Obviously, South Africa is back in the fold. Pedro,
I'm gonna jump in right now.
jump in,
Because
baby.
this is live radio, and when you do live radio, certain glitches happen.
We have a guest who needs to talk to us
we
right
have a
now.
Guest. We have a guest that has just a couple of minutes for us. So I'm gonna interrupt Janet, and we're gonna
Please do.
come back to This Week in History. But first, I'm gonna say hello to Luis Fernando Luque. Okay. See,
We got to back up.
we have to
Okay.
back up and do what
Why
is
we
the
were
topic
what we were
of this
talking
show.
about before, yeah.
But Luis Fernando is there. The topic for our show is wines.
Well, because a lot of things are going on this week. The Bogota Wine
Wine
and Food Festival is
Festival.
going on. So we decided to talk about wine. And Pedro was saying that, I'm like Miss Expert in wine. Because in a previous incarnation, in a previous life, well, in this life, but in a previous life, I'm actually a professional sommelier and a certified wine educator.
cool.
And before Luis Fernando started working at the wine store, and we'll talk about the wine store in a second, I had a wine boutique on Avenida 82 called Vinos Reserva Especial. I went Olympically bankrupt, and fortunately for Luis Fernando Luque, the wine store did not go Olympically bankrupt. So welcome to the show, Luis Fernando. It's awesome to see you here.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm also happy that we are still here in business.
Yeah, you guys, your original location is on Calle, what's that, 81? 81, like by
81
the
and
Once?
10. Uh-huh.
Yes, in front
And-
of the park.
Yes.
And you guys have carried on the tradition of doing wine courses and doing tastings. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at the wine store, Luis Fernando, and tell us your background in wine.
Well, the store has been in place for more than 10 years, and actually today is the largest wine store in Colombia with more than 2,300 wines for sale, which is a pretty large selection.
Pretty
And,
serious stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. And we also carry delicatessen items, books, and so on, everything related with wine. And since the beginning, we knew about the education factor in the wine. And we started giving wine tastings here, as well as courses, and always focus in teaching people everything about wine.
What's really cool about that is when I got my start in wine in Bogota, talking 1998, I remember I opened the store and I had all these, everyone was really interested in interviewing me because there was this young American woman who opened a wine store. And I remember one of the questions that I was asked, and I guess I got a little indignant, but I answered it properly on TV. And they said to me, "But why wine? Wine is such an elitist beverage. Only rich people drink wine." And in 1998, that was kind of true. Luis Fernando, how have you seen over your years in working in wine in Bogota, how have you seen the market change? Are more people drinking wine? Are more people interested? Tell us about your experience with the change in the market for wine in Colombia.
Well, you're right. Maybe at the beginning, the wine was maybe focused on wealthier people, and as we are having more wines in the market, and also with the entrance of the wine sections in the supermarkets, wine became more popular. And nowadays, we have increased maybe by 5 times the consumption in the last 10 years, which is amazing. And we are also facing now new challenges because we have new taxes as well. But at the same time, we are also seeing new cheaper wines in the market. This situation is allowing people to actually drink wine because it's cheaper, and you can get it in any corner store in the city.
Well, I remember back when I got my start was when Carrefour was just starting to enter. Carrefour, which is now Jumbo, was just starting to enter. And in those days, the joke was that you went to the Gringa to learn, but you bought it in Carrefour because it was cheaper. Have you seen a lot for the wine store? Because you're more of a dedicated store to just wine and delicatessen items, how do you see the competition from larger retailers like Carulla with their Friday 25% off? Don't go to Carulla, go to the wine store. Or Jumbo. How are you guys maintaining your market position in the face of big retailers who can afford to cut prices?
Well, the thing is, we are targeting a different segment of the population. No, people start to drink. Maybe they go to a supermarket, they get a cheaper bottle, and as they start learning, they are also asking for a better selection of wines, and of course, with that has to be together with a recommendation from somebody who's knowledgeable about that. If you go to a supermarket, you may have some people there who are pushing the product to you, but they are
happens
not
all
actually.
the time.
Yeah.
They are not actually giving you the right advice. So if you are really a wine lover, the next step after going to the supermarket is going to a specialized store like the wine store. As soon as you arrive to the wine store, of course, you are received by professional sommeliers who are more interested in giving you the right product and the right experience rather than pushing you a specific brand of wine.
Which is a super, super important thing that I found when I had the store was, people, and that, again, we're talking 20 years ago when people really didn't have a lot of knowledge. I'd have people come in and say, "Oh, I'm having a lunch with my girlfriends, so I need wine." And it would be, "Okay, well, what are you serving?" "Well, we're serving shrimp in garlic sauce." "Okay, fine. Well, let's look at something white." "Oh, no. White wine? Ugh, why would one drink white wine?" Are you still seeing people with those kinds of myths in their head about wine? Are people still coming to you and just being like, "Oh, it has to be French or it has to be red"? Or are people more open to trying things?
Well, I mean, you see both. You see very traditional people with a lot of myths about wines. But still, for example, if somebody really wants to have a red wine with fish or so, we still have red wines that go along with fish and with light foods. The thing is to have the knowledge about the different types of grapes that are available, and which one could be both. So it could be good for the food and could be good also for the taste of the person who's buying it. So we are not that worried about the myths, especially because here the people are trained to deal and to recommend the wines to the people to get the best experience. If somebody wants to have a red wine, well, I mean, that means that the person actually is into red wine, and you have to basically help the person to have the best experience. So you would recommend a really light red wine to go with a lighter plate. But of course, I mean, there are tons of myths that we have to debunk every day. You know?
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. But I always find it interesting. Well, I'll go into like a Carulla or one of those places where they have people impulsing the sale of wine, and I'm sometimes really odious because I will let them like tell me the 3 things that they know, because I'm not going into a place like the wine store because it's far from where I live. Give us a plug for the wine store, Luis Fernando. I know, but you guys are really far away. Luis Fernando, give a plug for your store. Tell us where your locations are. Tell us about the wine courses that you teach and how people can find out more and learn more about wine from experts like you and your staff.
Well, the first thing that people have to do is come to the store. We are located in 81st Street with 10th, right in front of the park. And you'll find this amazing old house, really large.
Big.
We have 650 square meters full of wine. More than 2,000 references, 5 sommeliers here. We have a wine bar here. I mean, it's a really a wine experience place. So that the first thing is just to arrive here and let yourself be amazed by the wine world. And then, of course, I mean, we have also the courses, and we have the tastings every week, 2 or 3 tastings that you can find out through our Facebook page. It's called The Wine Store Bogota. And you'll find there all the agenda for the wines. Every week we have different wine tastings with different sommeliers who are teaching our people and our clients about the wine. And we are also in Twitter. And you all can just go to our webpage, is theWineStore.com.co, and register your email, and you will receive every week a newsletter with the tastings of the week. So it's very easy to know the programs that we have here, to arrive to the store. Our people who are working here are really friendly. And the selection, to be honest, is really amazing. And it's not that we are telling you that. We have people coming to the store who are wine lovers, especially from overseas, who are really amazed by the opportunity that we have in the Colombian market of having the selection that we have here. Actually, we are exclusive importers of the best wines from France, from the Bordeaux region, Grand Cru Classés, and really, I have to tell you, very expensive bottles of wines, or more than 3 or 4 million pesos per bottle, which is something remarkable, as well as a regular bottle of 30,000 pesos. So we have bottles for every budget and every taste.
But that's something that's really important, because again, 20 years ago when I was in the business, we had 350 different references of wine, which was huge at the time. So now when the fact that you guys have over 1,800 references 20 years later is a testament to the change in the culture here in Colombia. When we see things like the Bogota Food and Wine Festival, we see things like Expo Vino. I wish I had not gone Olympically bankrupt 20 years ago and I could still be in the business. Luis Fernando, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome to talk to you. I hope to go and visit you soon when I'm in the neighborhood. And we would love to have maybe one of the things we do here in Bogota in the Colombo is culture, and wine is culture. So it would be very cool to have you guys come down and
yeah,
do
of course we can do it. Actually,
we could work together on that.
We have several programs with educators, and we conduct also tastings in English as well. So it will be a nice opportunity to go and visit you and allow people to have the experience of the wine, which is just great. Thank you very much.
We need to keep in touch. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Luis Fernando Luque from the Wine Store in Bogota. DJ Pau, give us some music. Okay, so we had a brief taste of what we're going to be talking about today. Talking about wine. Yes, it's a subject that is near and dear to my heart. And actually, there are a couple anecdotes. If it weren't for wine, I wouldn't have met my husband. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get back quickly to this week in history. We were on August 12th. On August 12th, 1981, IBM released its first PC.
It's big for IBM.
That's
Wow,
huge.
that's huge, yeah.
And I remember I was living in Colombia at the time, and a friend of mine was like the big nerd.
Yeah.
He was the only person I knew here in Colombia who had a
Who had a
PC.
PC.
And we were like, whoa, that's crazy. No one will ever use it. Yeah. So a few years later, August 12, 1992, a joint announcement by the U.S., Mexico, and Canada of the completion of the talks surrounding NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. And if certain people in Washington have their way, we'll hear another announcement about that. Hopefully not. On August 12th, 1994, I know that Pedro could talk more about this one. Major League Baseball players went on strike. Baseball players went on strike. Can you remember anything about that? You were kind of young then.
No, but it's
I wasn't. I was old.
in American sports. There's always the talk of salary caps, and in every single professional sport, team owners and their stars' representatives clash always over salary caps.
We see that now wildly in soccer.
And in soccer and everything. And in the U.S., the famous baseball player strike was all about that, about salary caps and how. But what was important that year is that they actually went to strike, and there was no World Series that year. They just finished because, as we have talked in the past, baseball season is from one date to the. It's a season.
Like April
it's a
2nd
season. They're not
until
going to
mid-October.
stretch it because they can't stretch it because
You can't play baseball in the snow.
You can't play during the winter because they're open parks, and it's football season, and football is bigger than baseball, and football season starts, and nobody's going to pay attention to baseball, so they just wrapped up the season, and in the mid-season they ended up the strike, and they started a new season.
This was a huge
But
deal.
did it pay off for players? Like, did they get what they wanted in the end?
Public opinion was very much against the players at the time.
Against the players, because
It would seem
the
that
owners,
these are
the
guys.
owners,
Kind of
the
unfair.
owners,
These are guys who play a
also
game for a
owned-
living.
Yes, it was like
They also
you're-
own the media.
You're
and-
paying millions
Oh,
of
come on.
dollars, and you're still
And you're
complaining, and you're still complaining.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
and you play for a living.
and the
It was
owners
not a
and
good
the
time.
owners also owned the press, so it was yes.
Yeah,
They
it
got
wasn't a
blamed.
good time for the
They
players.
got blamed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy time. August 13th. On August 13th, 1918, Opha May Johnson became the first woman to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. That's kind of cool.
That's huge, yeah.
Like, you can Google this woman. She looks like a Marine. Anyway, 1961, August 13th, construction began on the Berlin Wall. Which, as we know, in 1989, deconstruction began on the Berlin Wall. A good friend of mine was living in Germany at the time and has a piece of the wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
those famous photos of guys with sledgehammers standing on top of the wall, slamming it down. August 14th, this, to me, as an English literature major, was kind of cool.
You discovered
August-
something.
I discovered
Preparing
something.
for this section.
This is pretty cool. August 14th, 1040 in Scotland. Duncan, there really and truly was a King Duncan, was killed by Macbeth,
Yes.
but
By
not
one of his lords.
in battle. But
Yes.
he was battling against Macbeth.
Yeah.
Not as in, we all know Shakespeare took an awful lot of license, a lot of it politically motivated, not stabbed to death in bed by Macbeth, and with Lady Macbeth trying to wash the blood off her hands and stuff.
So much
But Duncan, the blood. Duncan was in fact killed in battle with Macbeth, which I
So
did not know.
Shakespeare took from a historical.
Most of what
figure.
Shakespeare did came from history,
Yes.
but a lot of it, I mean, I'm one of those Richard III lovers, so, Richard III, and it makes me mad. Anyway,
A horse.
my kingdom for a horse. August 14th, 1592, an English explorer named John Davis became the first European to look upon what is known to some as the Falkland Islands and known to others as the Islas Malvinas. Interestingly, today, and I kind of equate this a little bit with the archipelago of San Andres and Providencia here in Colombia.
Yes.
Right.
Because San Andres and Providencia are owned by Colombia, although Nicaraguans would like to say something
I know
else.
where you're going. It's
But-
historically owned, but closer to.
Well, closer to, but also culturally. I mean, in San Andres and Providencia, you don't speak Spanish. I mean, you can, but most people speak English. People have last names like Williamson and Marshall. Well, the same thing happens in the Falklands/Malvinas, because in really sort of the lingua franca in the Falkland Islands is in fact English.
Yes.
And most of the settlers are of English and or Northern European descent.
Yes.
And there's a lot of sheep. But
A lot.
we might recall, I believe it was in 1982, the last time there was actually a major conflict in the Falklands Islands War between Britain
was
and...
later because
I think
it
it was
was-
80. I was living here. I was in
Okay,
Colombia.
so you were
It was
already-
82.
Okay.
Between England, Britain, and Argentina, there was a...
Correct.
It's
April through June 1982.
1982.
You're correct.
I'd be-
I thought it was closer to the World Cup, the 86 World Cup.
No,
and
you know why I remember?
Maradona.
Because it was my last year in Colombia.
Okay.
And I remember where...
Okay.
I have like this very pictorial memory, and I can remember sitting in the kitchen in that particular apartment that we lived in 1982, reading Time magazine about the Falklands.
Okay.
1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act, which was really important and still is really important for the past, well, for my entire life. People have been saying Social Security is going bankrupt. Still hasn't.
Still hasn't.
An awful lot of people still rely on Social Security for their retirement.
It was huge for FDR at the time because it came.
Well, he was considered
right
a socialist for
yes,
it.
no, it was after the worst economic crisis that the U.S. had seen, and for a president to organize something, because the logistics of it was huge. The mindset had to change. Whole generations of people to explain to them that they one day had to retire was really complicated.
Well, and that they had to pay money
Yes.
into a system
Yes.
so that would go to other people who are currently retired.
Yes.
Where did they get the idea from? Was there another government who already had that?
No,
in
it was the
place?
first. They
It was
were the
actually-
first.
FDR was a
Pioneering?
FDR was a pioneer
No, I
in
think-
social programming.
All right.
If I'm not wrong, what FDR really did organize for the first time was that it was a part paid. I mean, the employer,
The
employer had to
co-pay.
pay, and the employee had
Which
to
is what
pay,
we have here
which
in
is what
Colombia.
we have
Yes.
here in Colombia, and it's makes sense for it to be funded that way. It's not only the employee that's paying for its retirement; it's the employer giving a little bit also. But that, yeah, Social Security was organized by FDR. Then,
Hugely
and it
important,
was-
and
yeah.
it's still, and it's not.
not social
Monty
security.
Python are not dead yet. All right, in 1945, August 14th, Japan accepts. Remember, we talked about this a few shows ago. The Allied terms of surrender, which Stalin and Truman and Churchill came up with in like April of 1945, and Japan went, nah, we're not going to accept. Well, on the 6th and 9th of August, the Allies, particularly the Americans, kind of didn't give Japan much of a choice by dropping major, huge bombs.
Two bombs.
As a result, on August 14th, 1945, Japan accepted the Allied terms of surrender, effectively ending the Pacific theater of war and ending World War II.
And that's when, for the first time ever, the voice of the emperor was heard on the radio.
How cool.
No, it was
It was pretty bad. It wasn't so cool for him.
For the mindset of a Japanese, the emperor was a demigod.
Wow.
He was a direct descendant from the sun.
Yes,
So for him
to accept defeat.
to accept defeat, and for you as a human being to be able to hear the voice of a demigod was huge at the time.
Well, also, I mean, remember, these are the relatively early days of radio.
Yes. right.
Because also, if you remember, I reference a lot Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes in Downton Abbey, where Lord whatever his name is like, no, we're not going to have a radio, we're not going to have a phonograph.
Crawley.
And then the king speaks on the radio, and he's just like, so think about how it was. Modern, we're listening to the king, but for the Japanese to hear the voice of the emperor and the voice of God.
Huge.
Yes.
That's huge. Yeah.
So they were on a mission from God. Anyway, 1975, August 14th, the Rocky Horror Picture Show debuted in London. Rocky Horror Picture Show is the longest running release in film history.
Yes.
You can still see the Rocky Horror Picture Show
It hasn't
on screens everywhere. I mean, pretty much probably in every state in the U.S.
Yeah.
and in England as well. Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is a totally crazy, weird, wacky musical. It's like, okay, it's the Transylvanian alien Transylvanian transvestites.
There you go.
Pretty famous actors in it. Susan Sarandon played Janet.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry is in it. It's one of those things that has become a cult classic, that people dress up
Yeah.
and go to the shows. And in fact, in front of the screens, there are people who mime the show.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, this
So-
is huge.
It's a cult.
This is
huge.
Rocky Horror Picture Show
This
is
is the cult. This is the
cult. And I mean, when
Very-
I
I
was a
had no
kid,
idea about this one. How
when
cool.
I was a kid, this was a cult. And one of the famous songs, it's called "Damn It, Janet, I Love You." And so when I was in high school, they're like, "Oh, your name is Janet, damn it, Janet." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I haven't heard that one before." Anyway, yay, Rocky Horror Picture Show. In 2015, August 14th, the United States reopened its embassy in Havana, Cuba.
Okay.
Which was a huge deal. Actually, the ambassador in Havana was a political officer here in Colombia in the year 2000. He was a friend of mine. Interestingly enough, we all know some crazy things have been happening with regard to the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. We've had those alleged auditory attacks
Yes.
in Cuba, similar to what is allegedly happening in the embassies in Beijing. So I don't know if our friends from the State Department want to go to Cuba. It's, my friends like it. August 15th, 1843. This is really cool. The first amusement park with rides and stuff opened in Copenhagen, Denmark, Tivoli Gardens, which is still
So
open to
long
the day.
ago.
1843.
I love this. I love this because it's such a 19th century Victorian kind of thing.
Can you picture the ladies with their bustles and
because
stuff
it has
at the
to be
amusement park?
okay, now it's time for leisure because until then it was you're going to work 80 hours a week or something. Again, with the Social Security, it was
A different concept.
different concept, different mindset of you're going to work your whole life, but now amusement.
But now in
you have to
2018. 2018, do you think of Denmark as being like the seat of amusement parks? No, you think of Texas or Florida. Six Flags or
Yeah.
Disney or
Right,
something.
yeah.
Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen. August 15th, 1914, the Panama Canal opened for business. The first ship through was the SS Ancon, which was a freighter. 1939, The Wizard of Oz made its premiere. Wizard of Oz, famous for going from black and white when they're in Kansas and to color when they go to Oz, because we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Technicolor.
Technicolor.
It was Technicolor.
In
That's the word.
Technicolor.
That's the term.
1947, India declared its independence from the British Empire. 1965, August 15th, the Beatles played Shea Stadium. Very, very famous because it
Very
was
big.
the beginning of stadium rock concerts.
And
Nobody,
it was-
and
and it
they
was-
filled Shea Stadium.
And it was the whole British musicians and British,
The British
bands
invasion.
of the U.S. Yes.
The British reinvasion. And also on a musical note, on August 15th, 1969, which was the first day of Woodstock. The opening of Woodstock in upstate New York, the famous, very muddy, and I don't know, I wouldn't have gone because I don't think they had bathrooms, festival. I only have one thing for August 16th, but it's a pretty major one. August 16th, 1954, the first issue of Sports Illustrated, no, not the swimsuit edition, just Sports Illustrated was published. August 17th, 1585, the first Roanoke colonists were sent by Sir Walter Raleigh. to go over and make a commercial colony in Virginia. Unfortunately, they were ill-fated because they all disappeared.
Didn't survive.
Nobody's
Or
quite
do
sure
we
what
don't know
happened.
if they
Whatever happened to
survived.
Nobody knows.
Maybe they went native and
Well, there are different. I mean, some they may have died because of adverse weather conditions.
Right.
There were clashes with indigenous tribes in the
Was
area.
it a bunch of people going?
Yeah, it was a
there?
whole
yes, no,
colony.
they left them on the swamp. It was bad.
There was
choice
like
of-
90 of them, and then boom,
Wow.
disappeared.
When they
Just
came
saying.
back, they were not there.
Wow.
And there was no trace of them.
But it's easy to say when they came back because it was a couple of.
Well, they
years later.
came back like
Right.
three
Yeah,
years later.
yeah.
The governor of Roanoke left to like do something in England. And when he came back, nobody was there. On August 17th, yikes. That was my phone. Sorry, guys. August 17th, 1945 was the publishing of George Orwell's Animal Farm. All
Big,
animals are
awesome
equal,
book.
but some animals
Big.
are more equal than others. Huge,
Awesome book, yeah.
hugely important. Comment on society. Orwell was the original dystopian author.
Yes.
1984.
Genius,
Read
absolute
Orwell, his essays, his novels, everything. It's very.
He was a seer.
important-
I mean, he saw what was
important
going to happen.
Author
Yeah.
to read today in 2018. Yes.
Because you kind of get shocked by,
Yes.
wow. Animal Farm, August 18th, speaking of the Roanoke colony, on August 18th, 1587, Virginia Dare, who was the first English or European child to be born in the Americas, in North America. Unfortunately, Virginia Dare didn't live too long because she was part of that first group of Roanoke colonists who
I like the
disappeared.
fact that I like that piece of trivia. That there's a record of who was the first
Was Virginia
European
Dare.
born. I didn't know that.
There are a lot of, they're actually in on the East Coast, there are a lot of things named after Virginia Dare.
Okay.
And actually, Virginia Dare was the granddaughter of John White, who was the governor of the Roanoke colony,
Roanoke.
who went to England, like, yay, celebrating the birth of his granddaughter, and then he came back and, well, nobody was there. On August 18th, 1920, super important, the 19th Amendment was ratified, the 19th Amendment giving the right to vote to women in the United States. On August 18th, 1958, that famous book by Nabokov, Lolita, was published. 1963, James Meredith became the first African American to graduate from the University of Mississippi. And on August 18th, 1989, I remember this day very well, Luis Carlos Galán Sarmiento was assassinated in Soacha as a presidential candidate.
What were you doing in that year? You were.
I was here visiting some friends. My friends' parents were having their 25th wedding anniversary. Now, this is pre-cell phones, pre-internet. And so they're having this like big 25th anniversary party in their house, and somebody had gone and turned on a TV.
Yeah.
And President Barco was on TV talking about what was going on. And I mean, these were wealthy people, so they had like bodyguards. The bodyguards had radios. And everyone, like, the party just broke up because everyone split looking for their kids because there was fear that because of the assassination of Galán, who was, of course, hugely popular and was expected to become the president, it was feared that something similar to the 9th of April after Gaitan's assassination was going to happen. So it was huge. I mean, I remember so well that night.
Wow.
It was craziness. We were at the following day. We went to the theater. And do you remember Pacheco?
Yeah.
So it was Sugar. They were doing like the remake of Some Like It Hot,
Yeah.
the old Marilyn Monroe movie. And before the show started, Pacheco, who was, for those who are listening to us outside of Colombia or don't know who Pacheco was actually Spanish, but he came in here and he was a very important, very beloved figure in the entertainment industry here in Colombia. Pacheco came out and gave the most heart-wrenching eulogy for Luis Carlos Galán Sarmiento, which was kind of weird, juxtaposed with the craziness that was the play Azúcar. Anyway, a lot of birthdays this week. We can say happy birthday this week to 1887, Erwin Schrödinger.
Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's, if you're a Big Bang Theory fan, they talk about the paradox of Schrodinger's cat all the time, which was a cat could basically, let's break it down to, the cat could be alive and dead at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, if you really want to know, Google it. 1911, Cantinflas.
Big
Mario
one.
Moreno, a huge
Huge.
one. 1990, for those of you football fans out there, soccer fans, Mario Balotelli. August 13th, the birthday of Fidel Castro.
Yeah.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
Current.
the current White House
secretary.
spokesperson, press secretary. And I'll just stop right there. 1982, Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier.
The Winter
You know,
Soldier.
I always do Avengers birthdays, guys. August 14th, Magic Johnson, another football guy, Giorgio Chiellini, and American football, Tim Tebow has his birthday.
Yeah, but he's a bust.
Yeah, he was like the man, but now not so much.
Yeah, Tim Tebow.
Yeah, people make fun of him now. August 15th,
He's a
Napoleon.
punchline. Yes.
Tim Tebow's a punchline. Napoleon can sometimes be a punchline, too. 1912, Julia Child. The great Julia
Do the
Child.
voice.
Ooh. Ooh. Now we're going to make some chicken. Okay, 1926, someone near and dear to my heart because he was the president of my university, which I was visiting last week. Dr. John Sober was born in 1926. 1938, the high IQ Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters is a Democratic member of Congress from California. Maxine Waters has been in Congress for over 20 years. Again, she was born in 1938, which makes her 80.
Yeah.
Still very important, and someone whom the current occupant of the White House has found it necessary to call the low IQ Maxine Waters. She's not low IQ. She's a brilliant woman. Happy birthday. Also, August 15th, Alejandro González Iñárritu, back-to-back Oscar winner for his films. He won the best directing and best picture
Best picture, yeah.
for Birdman and then for The Revenant the following year. Shout out to Latin Americans in cinema. August 16th, James Taylor, You've Got a Friend, was born. Madonna turns 60. Madonna turns 60. I'll just let you guys sink that one in. August 17th, and I know that my friend Pedro has something to say about this, Davy Crockett. Who the heck was Davy Crockett, and why do Americans care about
You see the king of the world.
the king of the wild frontier?
Okay. No, he's huge and important U.S. history character that became a myth. The important thing about David Crockett is that it became a myth in the 20th century, not in the 19th century when he lived.
He was
and
huge in
dead.
the 70s.
But yes, in the 70s there was a
TV
show,
shows.
and people, you would say the name, and
King
then
of the wild frontier.
anybody who's of certain age listens to
Young.
the name.
I would say the second
Listen.
part of that.
You say
and-
you
and
immediately say the
you have
king
to
of the wild
sing
frontier.
it, King of the Wild, and you have to do the whole.
Davy
Davy
Crockett. Okay, but who was the man?
He was a frontiersman. He was more important than you think. He wasn't just a guy that went into the wild and met with Native Americans
And wore
or
a coonskin
whatever.
cap.
Yes, or a coonskin
Coonskin
cap.
cap.
He was actually a politician.
Was he? No way.
He was a member of Congress.
No way.
He was,
He was
and
more than the king of the wild frontier.
yes, because he was a politician. He went to Congress. He was politically the adversary of Andrew Jackson in
He
the
wouldn't
whole,
have been the only one.
in the whole Indian Removal Act,
Whoa.
and he obviously lost all those battles. And because his political career was over, then he went into the wild, and he actually left the U.S. because he
And
was
became
done
the
with
king of
it.
the wild frontier.
And
No.
became-
Yes.
and became a Texan when Texas was fighting for its
Okay.
independence.
When Texas was the Republic
Yes.
of Texas.
And that's why he died at the Alamo during the Alamo siege. That's why he was at the Alamo, because he had being a politician, representative from the state of Tennessee. He was all about Tennessee. He grew up in East Tennessee. He gained a lot of reputation hunting and being. He was actually good storyteller. He was really famous while being alive. It wasn't just after he died. He was a really famous American frontiersman at the time. But again, he was a defender of Native Americans when there were very few of them. And when the whole policy of the U.S. was for Indian Removal Act in Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, the whole Trail of Tears happened.
Which we've talked about in the show before.
He was just done with it. He left. He went for Texas, fought for Texas in that whole Mexican affair that was the Battle of the Alamo, and he died there.
But in the minds of people from the U.S. of a certain age, you say the name Davy Crockett and you immediately think King of the Royal Frontier. And you picture a guy in a suede and a leather jacket with like frills and a coonskin cap.
Because it's all about the self-made man, which is one of the most important ideas of American identity. The man that becomes bigger than life by himself. It's all about... And in the U.S. during the 19th century was all about the struggle between man and nature. And Davy Crockett was perfect for that. It's how the, unfortunately, white man dominates nature.
Yep. So this is like serious Americana.
Yes, no,
here,
it's
But
part
he
of...
became an icon after he's
Huge.
Like
You just Googled him, and it says Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier.
Yes.
Right? So Davy Crockett is a huge part of Americana.
Yes. Popular culture, yes.
Super important in popular culture. I don't know so much now, but I know that when I was a kid in the 70s in the U.S., Davy Crockett was like, it was a thing.
Yes.
He was a thing.
Well, happy birthday for him.
Happy birthday, Davy Crockett. And on August 18th, Robert Redford, whom a lot of our listeners...
Last week was important, yeah.
Last week was a big deal. Robert Redford, again, also in like the 70s and 80s, was a huge deal. He was this handsome actor. His son is a famous documentary filmmaker who was here and visited us here at the Colombo a couple of years ago, Jamie Redford. Younger listeners and / viewers will know Robert Redford as the bad guy from Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
And Robert Redford last week announced, he is 82 years old, announced that he will be retiring from acting, which you would think, well, he's 82, big deal. But Robert Redford is still very active.
Yeah.
But he's going to take a break and enjoy the rest of his years. So happy birthday.
He still has his...
He has Sundance.
He has
Robert
Sundance.
Redford created the Sundance Film Festival.
He created it.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's from
Utah.
Colorado.
He's from Utah.
From
Sundance is from Utah. Robert Redford created the Sundance Film Festival. Super important person in popular U.S. culture. And happy birthday to Robert Redford. That's what I got. It was a lot.
That was a lot. Because
DJ
it was a 2 parts This Week in History.
I know, but we're missing one of our invitees, so we had to stretch it a little bit. DJ Powell, give us some music.
Say, has you stopped me just a second away from all the pain? You told me if I leave, then no one gains, and it feels like you smashed me with a hammer. I'm ready to see we fell apart. I'm ready to believe you have a heart. And then you said, hey, we can build it all up again. We can leave with the morning train. I could try to get over you. but I will never love again. Hey, we can build it all up again. We can dance in the summer rain. I know we can find it and keep it. We'll get back home again. I said, hey, you found me like inflation, but I'm ready to see we're both a part of it. Could be the start of it, 'cause I know you're the missing piece of puzzle. You're the queen of my car, ha ha, so you're in my heart, ha heart. Hey, we can build it all up again. We can leave with the morning train. I could try to get over you, but I will never love again. Hey, we can build it all up again. We can dance in the summer rain. I know we can find it and keep it. We'll get back home again. Feeling the wind, there's a storm coming in to break it tonight.
So we're talking wine today, and 20 years ago you were in the wine business.
I was in the business, man.
But before that you were already into wine. How did you learn about the whole wine culture?
You know what?
It's such a rich culture.
But you know, it's funny because I actually got into wine because of food.
All right.
My mom was a 70s housewife, kind of a cook. And I was joking the other day that the first time I saw an actual clove of garlic, I was in college. But once I got into college, I was like really into the idea of cooking. And I would do things like I would go or eat someplace, eat at a restaurant, eat at someone's house, and I would try and like take apart the dish so that I could recreate it.
Okay.
Which is what you do when you're tasting wine. Okay. When you're tasting wine, what you're doing is you're breaking down the elements. So because I was into cooking, and cooking naturally leads into wine, so I was sort of a very well-read wine amateur back in, I guess it was like 1997. And I was talking to a friend, and I said, you know what we really need in Bogota? We need like a place where you can go buy wine, and where like the people who are selling you the wine know what they're talking about, and people can learn about wine. And my friend, who had like some cash, said to me, well, do it.
Let's do it.
And I said, are you crazy? You can't just do that. You have to study first. You have to really know what you're doing. I mean, he said, well, you do the studying, come back, and I'll help you out to make a business.
Cool. Startup.
So at that time, it was like internet was still like dial-up internet, but I went on to dial-up.
Yeah.
Went on dial-up. It took like hours to load
Nobody
pages.
could make a phone call while you were on the internet.
Exactly.
Yes,
So I went online and I looked for places that I could learn about wine, and I found a certified wine educator who was in Aspen, talking about like the West, Aspen, Colorado, a guy named Stephen Reese, who did personalized wine courses for sommeliers. So I wrote to this guy, and he was in Aspen. It was like, you could tell I didn't have kids in those days, and I like had some cash to spend. I went to Aspen for 8 weeks.
Just specifically
8 weeks,
to take the course.
8 hours a day, one-on-one with Stephen Reese,
How cool.
who's a master of wine. And I remember the very first day I got there, it was in his house. I walked into his house, and he's got on the table 40 tasting glasses, all with a certain amount of wine. And he said to me, sit down. I want you to taste every one of these wines, and I want you to write half a page on each one. I was like, what?
Wow.
Obviously, by the time I was done, and okay, when you're tasting, you're not drinking. There's a difference between tasting and drinking. And a hint to any of you who go to like wine country out in California, if you want to get discounts, ask for the spit bucket.
What
if you
is it?
ask for a spit bucket, because when you're tasting, there's like a whole ritual around it, and we'll do that in December. I'm going to do a wine
Yeah, I
tasting.
want to learn about it. Oh my God.
There's a whole, it's the way you use your different senses to perceive not so much flavors as aromas in the wine. And then you spit out the wine, because if a professional taster drinks all the wine that they're tasting,
It's going to be tipsy and drunk at the end.
you'll be like dead. So I get through these like 40 glasses of wine, and I was like, oh man, like this was crazy. And he says to me, okay, well, which one was your favorite? What would you like to drink? And I was like, you got a beer? Because you get overloaded. You get completely
absolutely.
overloaded. So I did 8 weeks with Stephen in Aspen. Then I was in Bordeaux for a while. So I came back like full of knowledge, and I took my certified wine educator's course, and I got my certification, and then went about the business part,
Right.
which was an education. And I thank the Lord every day for that education that I had. Again, Olympically bankrupt, but met an awful lot of people, became known to an awful lot of people. I think part of the reason that I'm in the Colombo today is because people got to know me. But also, one fine day, this handsome guy and his mom walked into my store, and that handsome guy today is the father of my children.
You see?
Yeah, so, and I also, I mean, I did a lot of traveling.
How long did you have the store?
The store, I opened the wine store and subsequently the wine bar, the first wine bar in Colombia, at the end of the 90s, which was a really bad time to do something like that. For those of you who don't know Colombian history or are really young, a lot of the recent voters in the election, the end of the 90s, early part of the 2000s, guerrilla activity was really strong. Bombs were going off left and right. People with any kind of money in the bank were pretty much evacuating the country. It was economically a bad time. Safety-wise, it was a bad time. And I wasn't very well versed in business. I was one of those people who took people at their word.
Okay.
Most people
You can't take other word.
can't be taken at their word. I had the store, then I did the bar with partners, and there's a saying in Spanish, socios, sociedades ni en la cama, don't even have a partnership with your spouse. So yeah, I went Olympically bankrupt, a little scarring from that, but all in all, an important experience because I learned about people, I learned about business, I learned doing business in Colombia.
And you remain a wine lover.
And you're still a wine expert.
Yeah, but you know what? You lose it.
Okay.
When you're, especially in terms of tasting, you really need to keep tasting. It's an exercise that even, the most important wine experts in the world, the most famous people in the wine world have to keep tasting. But for example, being in wine, I got to meet super important people in the business.
There you go.
It was cool. And at the time, and the wine world still is pretty small and a pretty closed community. And a quick anecdote, I was called by someone to do a mini tasting course at a very exclusive, very traditional, very male-dominated club at the time that was in downtown Bogota, Ala.
Okay.
In a very important old house, which they have subsequently, I believe, sold to the Universidad de Rosario.
Yes.
So I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
because I live in the building next to it right now because now there's 72.
Exactly. Okay, so I was called to do this wine event for a bunch of the male elderly members of this club. Ala. So I'm downtown. And again, we're talking almost 20 years ago. So I was like this young, cute American woman. I walk in, 40 men there, members of this club, average age 55, maybe. So of course, I walk, this like young female and American. What could this person possibly know about wine? Okay, no problem. We get started. We're doing like a comparative tasting. And this gentleman says to me, "Ha, Chinita, I want to ask you a question to see if you really know what you're talking about."
Okay.
And I was like, see?
Shoot.
Shoot, Sumer said, Doctor. What is the best wine in the world? So I looked at him and I said, I'm going to give you the answer that I always give and the answer that I truly believe in. The best wine in the world is the wine that you like the best.
Yep.
Good answer.
And he looked at me and said, that's a pathetic answer. That shows you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, okay, well, then enlighten me. Tell me what's the best wine in the world. The best wine in the world is Chateau Latour 82. I said, really? And how do you know that? Sumer said. And he said, because I read about it in Wine Spectator. And I said, wow, yeah, I read Wine Spectator a lot. I go to their events in New York and San Francisco. But I would have to ask you this question. Have you ever tasted an 82 Latour? Because I have.
Wow.
And he went,
it's not necessarily the
he went,
best.
no, not yet. And I said, you never will. Because all of the 82 Latour was bought on futures back in 82. So in order to get the opportunity to taste an 82 Latour, you have
You
to
must
be
have bought it.
either have to be very, very, very rich and very, very well connected or in the business. So let's go back to something that's truly important. The best wine in the world is the wine that you like the best.
Wow. What an
Okay,
answer.
so that's my question. What's your best wine?
Depends.
Okay.
On
Depends-
The food, you're gonna
depends
say-
on-
Does the best wine you've ever tasted, is it connected to a memory of yours?
No.
But you're clear about that. Like, this is
The
mind blowing.
The wine that most impacted me.
That's my question.
The wine that most impacted me, I can tell you, I was in San Francisco at Wine Spectator does every 2 years, did this huge event for the business. And it was one of the tastings, and we had an 88 Sauterne.
Okay.
It was an 88 Ikem, I think. And I can still not so much taste it as feel it in my mouth. Ikem is a Sauterne. Sauterne is a wine from Bordeaux that is specifically harvested very, very late so that the sugars are highly concentrated in the grapes. Okay. It's basically, it's almost raisinated when it's finally harvested. Like a raisin. The difference between a grape and a raisin is that the raisin is all shrivelly and super sweet and like has really concentrated sugars. So Sauterne, which is a region in Bordeaux, the grapes are harvested when they're practically raisinated. And then what it creates is a very high alcohol because there's so much sugar the yeast can't break. I mean, this could be like for hours.
Okay.
Very high alcohol, sweet wine with with a lot of body. It's heavy on the tongue. Sauterne, contrary to a lot of people think, is not a dessert wine. The best thing to eat with a Sauterne is, and I'm a vegetarian, is a foie gras.
Okay.
Or a really strong, heavily veined blue cheese. So you can contrast the sweet with the savory. So anyway, we're sitting in this huge tasting, and it was a tasting of Wine Spectator's 10 most highly rated wines that were released the previous year. One of them was, I think it was an 89 Sauterne. It was an 89 Ikem.
And when was that?
That had to have been 1998 or 99.
Okay.
We get to this 89 Sauterne, and I just remember I took a sip, and it was the mouthfeel. And I remember thinking, it's like velvet made liquid.
Okay.
Wow.
That, I don't know if it was my favorite. It was, I think, the most impactful wine.
Yeah. So that's the thing about wines to me. I mean, experts in wine, is there really one that's like, you taste it and like mind-blowing, like, this is the one?
It depends on there are a lot of factors. People say, what's your favorite wine? I'm like, well, it depends. It depends on the temperature, depends on the climate, depends on if I'm eating, what I'm eating, who am I with.
There's a lot of good wines out there. Just drink whichever you want.
And there's a lot of like okay wines that are awesome in a moment.
Yes.
It depends. I mean, this was the big myth that drove me insane here. With the best white wine is the worst red wine. Like, no, that clearly shows me you know nothing about wine. Pet peeves: people who smell corks. That makes me insane.
Okay.
There is no reason to smell a cork. There is no bloody reason to smell a cork.
Okay.
A cork smells like a cork.
Like a cork.
And people keep doing it for some
Yes,
reason.
because they don't know what they're doing.
That's it.
You
They saw it in some movie
you
or
smell
whatever it
the
is.
wine. You don't smell the cork. If a wine is corked, meaning that there was something wrong with the wood, if a wine is corked, you don't need to smell the cork. You can smell it as soon as you open the bottle. But the best wine, seriously, the best wine advice I can give is the best wine in the world is the wine you like the best. Don't let anyone tell you what to like. Don't let people... Quick anecdote on this topic. Okay, so I went and I studied wine, I did all this stuff, and I had a store, and I gave classes, and people come up to me 20 years later and say, I took a wine class with you. So fine. At the time, I was dating someone from a very, very wealthy family. And his brother was going to turn 30. So their father, whom I still love to this day, said to me, oh, Janet, I'm going to give my son for his 30th birthday one of these amazing bottles of wine that I bought in Paris.
Okay.
Can you please let me know? I paid a ridiculous sum because I really did a great job jiving the salesman. How much is this wine worth today? So I took a look at the label and I was like, It was a Chateau Margaux, 1983. And I was like, So there exist books where you can find the price at auction or at like the high or median price of pretty much every bottle of wine produced in the world. Like huge tomes. So I of course had one of these, looked up this Margaux.
I have one of those books for comic books.
Do you?
Yeah.
There you go, because they're collectors.
You are a real fan if you have a book like that. Like
No,
yes,
I
because
do.
it's all about collections.
I have a very expensive comic books, but
So I look up. I don't know what year. Maybe was it 82? Anyway, I look up Margaux 82, whatever the year was. I don't recall. And it was like highest possible price at auction. Okay, back up. Margaux is one of the 5 top houses in Bordeaux. So a Margaux, by definition, is going to be more expensive than Gallo. Highest price at auction, $35. I was like, wow, $35 for a Margaux? So then I look up conditions for the year. Turns out that it had rained very hard just before harvest. So what happens is when it rains so hard, the grapes become swollen with water. So that when you press the grapes, what you're getting is very little fruit and a whole lot of water. So basically it was like, if you have this bottle, drink it now because it's just going to get crappy.
So 83 wasn't a good year.
No. So fine. We get to the big day of the birthday party, and my friend's father brings out the wine and with great ceremony presents to his favorite son, because, let's face it, he was the favorite. His favorite son, no, Felipe, I went to the wine store in Paris and I walked in and said, I'm from Colombia, I want to buy wine. First mistake. He then goes on to explain how he had really done a number on this wine salesman and gotten this price really low for this case of 6 bottles of wine. Then with great ceremony opens the wine and serves it to the guests. So my boyfriend at the time nudges me and goes, well, what do you think? So what do I think about what? The wine. I said, smell it.
Oh boy.
So he swirls the glass, smells it, and goes, doesn't smell like much. I'm like, yeah, now taste it. Takes a sip and goes, it tastes like nothing. I said, yep. But everyone else in the room,
What's
the best wine
what
ever.
is this? This is like a gift from the gods. Wow, what a privilege. Because people are
The emperor
so
was naked,
influenced.
and then they wouldn't say
They're
it.
going, look, this tastes like nothing to me, but I must be wrong. The best wine in the world is the wine you like the best.
There you go.
That's a very good answer, right?
DJ Powell, give us some
That's
music.
a good anecdote.
CCA Radio English Tips.
We have a wonderful topic today, which is wine. And I want to ask you,
Passionate.
yeah, it's a fascinating topic. And I want to ask Pedro and Janet a question. Is it true that when it comes to speaking a second language, wine loosens your tongue?
Absolutely true.
When it comes to not just your second language, your first language.
Well, first language, I get tongue-tied, but
Yeah, all right.
I was telling you guys the other day when
you
I
get a
first...
little bit more chatty.
You
Not
get-
you. Everybody gets a little.
I can't get more chatty. When I first moved back to the States, I went to high school here in Colombia,
Right.
and I moved back to the States, and I didn't speak Spanish very often. And I had a friend from high school who was from Puerto Rico,
Right.
and we always spoke English to each other. True confessions, yeah, sorry, Mom, my parents are dead, so it's okay. I did, in fact, drink in high school. My kids are not listening to this. I would have a couple of drinks. My friend Lena would have a couple of drinks, and the two of us would start, speaking rapid-fire Spanish to each other
That's it.
because we were more relaxed.
It works. It's a psychological thing. You're more relaxed.
Are you telling people to drink?
That's what. Well,
Are you
giving-
inciting alcoholism amongst language
suggesting
learners?
it can work, and then for those moments when you cannot have wine,
Or if you're
I'm gonna
under
give you- I'm
18
gonna
in
give you
Colombia.
other- yes, I'm going to give you other tips to loosen your tongue.
Loose
But
lips
it
and
is
ships.
it is true. Sometimes you can feel tongue-tied when you're speaking in English, and it's always good to have a couple of ideas for you to loosen your tongue besides drinking some wine.
Although, in vino veritas, in wine there is truth.
Wow.
Yes.
Meaning that
How cool. So
basically means if you're drunk, you have no filter.
you'll
But
get some
Of
truth.
course. See, I
So before we talk about the strategies, the suggestions, let's share some interesting facts about the tongue as a muscle. We know that the tongue is a muscle.
It's a muscle.
And it's actually the only muscle that operates without any support from the skeleton. So it's a very strong muscle. It's the most flexible muscle of the human body, and it is a key muscle. It's really key because it's useful not only in eating, but also in speaking. There are certain sounds that you cannot produce without the tongue, such as the T sound.
Yeah.
That one needs.
No, my friend that
the
lives in
T,
South
the
Africa,
K.
what he says is all African languages, they have the tongue against the top of your mouth.
but
The
talking.
Bushmen,
Yes.
the Bushmen and all those, the Zulu
They're-
languages,
Uh-huh.
they have
They
that.
rely a lot on.
How do you
on
say
the
chasquido?
It's like a snap.
Snap.
But it's like a tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Clicking. It's
Clicking.
clicking. It's clicking.
Clicking. So that's the tongue. How important it is. There are sounds you wouldn't be
For
able
so
to
many
produce if you didn't have a tongue. And something interesting I found is that there are tongue prints. It means
That's so gross.
I know, but it's just so unique.
Like,
The
can you
tongue is
imagine a
it's the
biometric
finger.
tongue print?
Of course it wouldn't-
Here,
I
to get in the
wouldn't
door, you
use
have to
it.
put your tongue.
But the point here is that it's unique to
It's
every
unique.
individual. And let's just stop it right there.
All we know is that somebody actually did a study of taking tongue prints, and he discovered that they are unique. So there
person
was
could've-
a scientific study conducted by
And
somebody.
this is
It has
going. This
no-
will
And
cure
it-
cancer, right?
yes.
All right.
It's-
Okay.
it
No,
has
and he
no-
got- he
Actually,
probably-
but that is interesting. It is an
He
interesting.
probably got a
fact.
lot of money
It's called-
to prove that.
It's called
or
an
to-
unenlightening
Ew.
fact. It has no purpose, no use, but it's just cool to know that. Yeah, your tongue
Only
is
for
unique.
the mind, for
Now let's go.
minutia.
Yeah, let's go back to the tips. How can you loosen your tongue?
Other than
Well, other
downing
than, yes,
a wine. Okay.
And number one, you can always practice with tongue twisters. Tongue
They're
twisters,
really good, yes.
they rely on memory, yes, but also on your ability to just, again, loosen your tongue, produce different sounds fast. If you don't like tongue twisters, you could even just say, I found this one, which is very, very interesting, the word tickets.
Tickets.
You can repeat it many
Tickets,
times as
tickets,
fast as
tickets,
possible
tickets,
because
tickets, tickets,
the
then you-
word, there you go, because tickets uses the three, let's say, parts of the
Tickets.
mouth.
Claro.
To produce the
It
T,
does.
to produce the T, you use the tip of the tongue. To produce the K, you use the back of the tongue.
Uh-huh.
And to produce the S, you use the middle of the tongue.
tickets.
So you just move your tongue a little.
It
It's
does.
a really cool thing, right?
Okay, everybody out there in
Everybody, tickets,
CCA
tickets,
Radio
say it,
Land.
Tickets 20
Say
times really fast.
Tickets, but
Yeah.
say it with really paying attention to what's going on in your mouth.
Touchdown. And you're going to
Cool.
use the 3 parts, let's say, of your tongue. It's really good. For those of you who don't memorize tongue twisters, for those of you who do, don't go with Peter Piper.
Peter
That
Piper
was very
picked
funny
okay, Peter Piper
yesterday.
picked a big pepper, pick full of peppers.
Janet said it's not a tongue twister, it's a lip
It's a
twister.
lip twister.
Because you're not using your tongue. It is very true. Not all the sounds are produced using the tongue. So
Tickets.
P is only with
Peter
the two
Piper,
lips.
I can't even do it right now.
How much wood
I need
would a
some
woodchuck
wine.
chuck if a woodchuck could
Could
chuck
chuck
wood?
wood.
That one is cool. She sells seashells by the seashore.
She sells
and
seashells by the
those are
seashore.
only ones that That's enough.
That's you.
Yeah. Okay, so you're loosening your tongue here. So
Just Google tongue twisters. You'll find a lot to
that's it.
practice.
By
And
the
find the
shore.
ones you like to practice. Another good strategy, you can always think of the music you like, and you can sing along. You can sing a part of a song that is fast-paced, that kind of like hip-hop or...
Do you have an
And
example
this
for
is
us?
the part,
True. I've been
please.
practicing this for a week.
Colombo listeners, this is
Ready?
the part where you're going to hear Danny Valderrama
Here
sing
comes,
for us.
here
Okay.
comes DJ Jazzy Danny.
Yes,
Sing
there we
to
go.
us.
So this is Red Hot Chili Peppers. The song is Can't Stop. And it says, can't stop, addicted to the shindig. Chop, chop, he says, I'm gonna win big. Choose not a life of imitation. This thing casting through the reservation. And that's as far as I'm gonna go.
Okay, can
Congratulations.
I just say there was a movie back like in the 90s called White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah.
White men can't rap.
Can't rap.
Just saying.
I remember that one. Oh, come on. Actually, the
That was
singer
actually a
is
good
white. So
White Men Can't Jump.
It was Woody
Woody
Harrelson.
Harrelson.
Wesley Snipes. It was a really
Woody
good
Harrelson.
movie.
Okay, y'all know Woody Harrelson from
Now
the
he has-
Hunger
he
Games
has no-
movies.
The
there
Hunger
anymore,
Games,
but yeah.
That's right. And Wesley Snipes, who now is not
White
making
Man
movies.
Can't
Wesley Snipes. What has he done lately?
Right?
He did Blade, and then he disappeared.
Blade.
Yeah, he disappeared.
He was like crazy vampire killer in
Yes.
Blade. All right. Okay, so back to tongue twisters.
All right, so back to tongue twisters and rap hip hop songs. Any song that will help you loosen your tongue. And those 2 suggestions are for you to exercise your tongue. We need one more suggestion to
Okay, one more.
relax your tongue. A lot of
And
us.
it's not about wine.
It's not about wine.
Okay.
Since the tongue is a muscle, it needs exercise, but it also needs relaxation. And it's kind of awkward to talk about relaxing your tongue, but
Yeah, well,
don't do this
yeah.
in front of anybody. But you can simply stick out your tongue for 10 seconds. And
That relaxes it.
That'll stretch it, therefore relax the muscle. You can roll it for 10 seconds. Nobody has to be looking at you. That's going to be very crazy if you do that in a job interview. Sorry, I'm just relaxing
But
my
you know
tongue
that's
here.
genetic.
Yes.
When you roll your tongue up from the
Yes,
side.
the
Whether
whole
you
side
can or
things and
not.
the whole.
Not everybody.
That's
In my
very
family,
true.
when my sister was annoying me, I would roll my tongue, and
Do
she would
this.
get mad because she can't
She
do
couldn't
it.
do it. I
Wow.
know. There's people that can't do it.
My son can like turn his tongue, can twist his tongue
Yeah,
sideways. I can't do
sideways.
that.
I can do that one.
That's
Yes.
impressive.
Really cool. So,
Like,
this
is
what you
that
can
is
do
that
to
like the tongue print
loosen-
thing of like interesting but like useless?
It's
well, maybe not so
enlightening.
useless.
It's cool, but it serves no purpose. And these are the English tips for today to loosen your tongue besides having some good wine. Let's get some music. It's-
You know I'm going down. I'm going down, down, down like a gone down. Keeping a smile on support. You know you got me down, down, down like a waterfall. You know just how love is made my heart. I wanna get to your clothes, gotta get it right now. I wanna push all the limits with you right now. So watch your feelings, the city's screaming, we're not coming home tonight. We're living quick in the world, gotta get it right now. People talk and tell what you wanna hear now.
So we mentioned earlier in the show, the reason that we're talking so much about wine today isn't just because it's one of our favorite topics, but also because this week will be the 7th version of the Bogota Wine and Food Festival, which is a really, really impressive event, bringing together chefs from not just around Colombia, but I remember I was at the first launching of chefs from the U.S., chefs from all around, and for a really good cause. And we're joined right now by telephone by Iris Quinn. Iris Quinn is actually a professional in finance and international relations, expert in marketing, but she and her sister Gayleen were also the creators of the Bogota Wine and Food Festival. Iris, welcome to CCA Radio.
Thank you for having me, guys.
It's really exciting to have you here. Pedro, you wanted to ask a question?
No. Let's start with the festival, which is this year. It's going to be its 7th edition. What's the origin of the festival? Where did it started, and what's the history of the festival?
Well, thank you for asking. 8 years ago, we were wondering. I wasn't living in Colombia. My sister, she lives in New York City, and we were wondering why we have such a beautiful country without any productive or gastronomic huge relationship with tourism. So we start thinking about just by yourself, like, wow, don't we go to a lot of wine and food festivals all around the world? How fun are those? Why don't we start doing something in Colombia? We had no idea that if something like this existed before, but we just gather all our information, and we start talking to banks, huge corporations, multinationals, and we end up getting all the funds to get the first edition. And actually, we have a really, really good connection with the American state, with the U.S. Embassy, because the first person that helped us to do the launching and everything was the American ambassador.
It was Ambassador McKinley. It was McKinley.
Exactly.
I was at that event and in the residence. That was such a cool event.
Exactly. And Fatima, his wife. She was. I mean, crucial to all of the embassies coming to our event, all the TV news covering our news media. So it was just the right timing and just a good idea, and the country was ready for it. So timing is everything, I think.
Iris, this event is a really amazing event. It brings together people from all over the world. Really showcases also what's going on in gastronomy in Colombia. But there's also a social aspect to this event. Can you talk a little bit about where the proceeds for the Wine and Food Festival go?
Yes, since day one, we started with my sister saying, like, okay, if we are really good Colombians, how we should do this? And at the first, and there was no question about it, we need to give all the proceeds to a charity event that connects with the industry. So we give all our proceeds since day one to Fundación Escuela Taller de Bogotá, and we support 100% the profession of gastronomy, because they have 3 professions in at that school. So one is to give something back to our country with education to a charity. And another one is to make a platform for new chefs, and not only from Colombia, but all around the world, to get together and start networking and starting to know our country, our food, our ingredients. So it has two main strong forces, and one is give back something. We need to give back. And we need to start doing things by ourselves. We cannot only rely on a few things. We can do it. And you just have to be smart about it. Do everything, like you said, with a lot of strategic planning. But especially Colombia and Bogota needs this type of events, because how do you know our country? Through their food or through their museums. So we want people to come to visit us, and we want better tourism to come to our country.
Wow, this is a very powerful message that you're giving in these, how this event puts together not only the fun and joy and the cultural aspect of around food and wine, but also the good cause of donating this to charity. This is the seventh edition of the festival, and you always make an effort to keep it fresh and vibrant. What is new this time? What can people find in this edition of the festival?
Well, this year it's the turn for the young chefs. We are supporting every single chef that is coming back to Colombia, because we are like Juan Ruano from Pasto. He studied abroad, and he came back to Pasto, his city, his region, some years ago, and he's doing an amazing work with his local ingredients. So we are giving them a platform for them to know each other, empower themselves, and create a community, a young community of chefs as well.
Wow. That's amazing, because over the years, you guys have brought more than 250 international chefs to Colombia. How do you go about? Maybe not. It might. I could be talking about something I don't know. And now Colombia is getting more known for its gastronomy. But 7 years ago, how did you convince chefs from the U.S. to come to Colombia and cook and show their food? What was your pitch to them?
Well, that was very difficult, but it's a challenge with a lot of respect. How did you approach an artist? You go to the restaurant, you pay for your meal, you enjoy it, then you send a small business card and say, do you want to know my country? I'm one of the founders or organizers. And with a lot of respect and with a lot of humility, I think, and we bring the best of them. I don't know if you know how many people have been here, like David Kinch from Manresa, Gatos, California. He came twice. And Dominic Crane from San Francisco, who's been here twice. Mm-hmm. Michael Lascones as well. So a lot of huge and very talented chefs have come to Colombia and left some knowledge in our country. And so what we did is, with a lot of respect, go door to door and just give them an excuse to come to Latin America and to know a different place and get to inspire with different ingredients. Remember that chefs are very curious, mm-hmm. and they are I think like artists. So you just give them an excuse to travel and to do something fun, and they'll go.
Wow, that's so cool.
So the event is taking place from Wednesday the 15th to Friday the 17th.
Just so
is that what it is?
The festival starts from August 15. We're going to start with the grand tasting, la gran degustación. Mm-hmm. We're going to have 14 chefs from the 9 different regions of Colombia, giving us small bites. We're going to have a very great mixology bar with local ingredients. What about something from the Amazon? What about something from Bichada? Different ingredients.
Wow.
And that's going to happen at Cerata Pulmont Market. That's located at Autopista on 114th Street. Mm-hmm. Don't miss it. It's 8 p.m. And the next day, we're going to have a night of 5 stars. We're going to have Manuela Samin, that she's coming from 11 Madison Park. You guys know that. Mm-hmm. This was the restaurant 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was the most important restaurant in the world. She's coming from 11 Madison Park. Sebastián Vargas is coming from Faviken in Suecia. Mm-hmm. And who else is coming? Proyecto Caribe is coming for a night of 5 stars as well. That's going to happen in a huge terrace in Cerata as well. And Friday and Saturday we have charlas de expertos. That's our academic part of the festival, and that's going to take place at Fundación Escuela Taller, downtown in Candelario.
That's amazing. And
calendar.
Iris, how can people, if people want to participate or to attend the events, is that still possible? And if it is, how can people get tickets? What should they do?
Yes. You can get tickets to different outlets. You can get tickets from tuboleta.com, from BogotaWineandFood.com as well, and you can buy your tickets from Rappi as well.
Amazing. Tell us about sponsorships. Obviously, you and your sister aren't doing this on your own. I don't think you're pulling you. I don't think anyone has pockets that deep. Who are some of the sponsors who are helping to make this happen here in Bogota?
Well, a lot of people, a lot of minds, a lot of volunteers. We have like a team of 150 people of volunteers that just want to make this happen, and they're proud of their city, proud of their professions, and so they come in and help us to do the festival. But big sponsors, we're working with the Vice Minister of Tourism of Colombia, and we work together. They're fantastic. We work with Lufthansa, we work with Club del Vino, we work with hotels like Estelar, like Western 93, and what else? El Tiempo. A lot of alliances have to take place in order to bring all of these amazing chefs and for all the Bogotanos to enjoy it.
Wow, seriously, chapeau, hats off to you, Sugaylin. This is an amazing thing that you had a crazy dream one day and you made it happen, and it's been happening now. This is the 7th time. Congratulations. Thank you for doing this, for putting Bogota on the gastronomic map of the world, and best of luck with this year's edition of the Bogota Wine and Food
Thank you
Festival.
so much, guys. So I'll see you at the 15th.
Yes,
Please.
ma'am.
I'll take some numbers.
Thanks, Iris. It's great talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks.
Back, playing loud in the speakers. You and me, can I marry you right away? Oh yeah. Listen to the midnight radio. Listen to the midnight radio. We can drive through the night, sing along to the midnight radio. Don't wanna wait all my life, can't remain, no delay, gotta let go. We can drive through the night, sing along to the midnight radio. Don't wanna wait all my life, can't remain, no delay, gotta let go. Listen to the midnight radio. Listen to the midnight radio. We can drive through the night. Oh, don't wanna wait all we can drive through the night, sing along to the midnight radio. Don't wanna wait all my life, can't remain, no delay, gotta let go. We can drive through the night, sing along to the midnight radio. Don't wanna wait all my life, can't remain, no delay, gotta let go.
Something about the way you move makes me wanna feel your groove. Something about the way you dress, baby, got me feeling like a mess, baby. You should still have
CCA Radio is knowledge.
go we say we go, 'cause I just wanna get down with you. For the last time, I can call you mine. Once more than I say we get through. You can tell me when we're
transition.
I know. I'm impressed.
That was smooth.
It was smooth. I'm
Now
impressed.
it's time for
Yay.
my section.
Yay, team.
Yay. Yeah. Let's see. Colombo's knowledge. Last week, last show, I changed it a little bit. I am no longer going to do a recommendation of 3 books. I'm going to do 2 books and something about technology.
Cool. I like it.
So now we're talking more.
Since we're now going to have a Ministry of Science and
Yes.
Technology.
We also
Innovation.
have a Ministry of Sports. Pretty soon.
This is a cool thing. All right. So what you got
Yes.
for us?
And I went back and looked at every single recommendation I have done. And surprise, surprise, I have done no graphic novels. And I'm really shocked at that.
No
because-
graphic novels?
No, I hadn't done anything new about graphic novels. And I was like, I should have done this a while ago. And a couple of months ago, I did read something that was really surprising. It's one of those one sittings of reading for 2 hours, read the whole thing cover to cover, and I was like, this is really good storytelling, and it's done through a graphic novel, which is different format, but still good reading. Highly recommended as well. All graphic novels for English learners. If you are a Colombo student, if you are learning English, this is the perfect format for you to expand your vocabulary. You don't have to understand every single word. Because of the graphic novel format, you understand what's going on through comics. You understand what's going on. You understand the action and the story that's going. And it's perfect for you to read in English. So my recommendation, a graphic novel, it's called I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly and Ken Minura. I will
No,
not
but-
do spoilers.
Okay, but we know that a movie came out. Don't watch the movie.
The
Read
movie's
the graphic
supposed to be, I
novel.
haven't watched the
The
movie.
movie's
but
out in the U.S.
Yes.
But
It's
they say
gonna-
it's a bad movie.
Yes, but the graphic novel's awesome.
Yes, I'm not gonna say that the reviews are mixed because the reviews
they're not
are
mixed.
not mixed.
They're
They are
universally
not- they're
bad.
not- yes, for the movie, the book that we have, the graphic novel. Please come and read it. It is a coming-of-age story about a teenage girl and what she has to face in school, in life, in family matters. It is really good. It's storytelling done well. It is a little bit of manga style, but it's not completely Japanese. The illustrator, Ken Minura, is Japanese, but it's not completely manga. They're not those doughy eyes.
Manga's the ones with the big eyes.
The big eyes.
Okay.
No, it has the Japanese style in its illustration, but it is very centered in American culture and everything. Highly recommended. It's one of those. It's good when you go. I try the graphic novel collection for the library of the Colombo has been growing because, as I said earlier, our students are constantly demanding more and new stuff because it's a good way to learn English and to practice their English. So I'm always buying new stuff and
at the end of the day, reading is reading.
it is reading. No,
Reading is reading.
Absolutely.
when you were talking about wines, I told you I'm a great big comic book collector, and I do have a comic book collection. I still read comics. I still have a couple of characters that I try to keep up to date with what's going on. My favorite character is Daredevil. I'm a huge Daredevil fan.
But not of the movie. Ew.
No, the Netflix thing. Oh, the movie was horrible.
Yeah,
The movie was horrible.
Yeah.
The
Ben
Netflix series.
Wait a second. And that was Ben Affleck.
That was Ben
wasn't-
Affleck,
yeah.
right?
That was Ben
2003.
Affleck pre-Batman, which he did a pretty good Batman. I, have
I
to
thought
say.
he was a good Batman.
I thought he was a good Batman. I thought it was a horrible.
Because that
Daredevil.
Bale guy, I hate that guy.
Yes, Christian Bale.
I hate him almost as much as I hate Nicolas Cage. Sorry.
You hate Christian Bale?
Hate Christian Bale.
Even after American Psycho?
Hate him. Hate him. Don't like him. Don't think he's a good actor. Plus, there's that famous video of him being really nasty to the lighting
one
guy.
of the lighting guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's apparently just not a
Yeah.
nice guy.
Not a nice guy. Okay.
And he's like kind of grody. Anyway, go ahead.
So that was I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly and Ken Minora. Highly recommended. And for my novel,
I'm a little sketchy on this one.
no. Okay.
Because
I
of
used
the
to- okay.
writer,
Because I'm not
or-
the writers.
I know.
Plural. Okay. I always try to keep up to date with the bestsellers in the U.S. and see as a binational center being the objective of the Colombo Library to be up to date with American culture, see what's been going on, what's reading, what's up to date in the U.S. And this book, when it was announced that it was going to be released, I was like, yeah, I'm going to probably one day read it. And then 2 weeks ago, I had a couple of days off in Cali. And
This is a beach book.
it's a beach book. I'm not even trying to sell it any other way. It is a beach book. It's called The President is Missing, and it's written by former President Bill Clinton and huge bestseller author James Patterson. I'm going to start with James Patterson first. James Patterson is a huge American author.
And he's filthy rich and he sells incredible amounts of books.
By now he already owns several series and publishing and series. He's gone into young adult, and there's books that sell just by having his name.
Yep.
But he used to be a really good writer of mystery and thrillers. He was at the beginning. He was a John Grisham-ish kind of. If he wrote it, it's a good plot. There's a good detective. There were too many serial killers for my taste, because there can't be that many serial
How can
killers.
that be nuts? Yeah.
And they can't all be caught by the same detective, but there was...
It was a series of serial killers.
Yes,
Yes,
but
caught by the same
I
detective.
used to read him when I was in D.C. because his detective is from D.C. Alex Cross was a
Wait.
D.C. detective.
The
police
the Alex Cross books are pretty good. On film, wasn't like
It was Morgan Freeman. It was Morgan
which
Freeman.
was so crazy because Alex Cross is this like young, like
And
Alex
he was
Cross
athlete and
is
young.
Like,
Yes, he was a
is
young
like-
African
is
American.
Like, what's his name? What's that guy's name who played Luther? Idris Alba. I see him as Alex.
Something.
Cross.
He was
Not
Alex Cross from
Morgan
the books.
Freeman.
Was younger than Morgan Freeman when he did the movie.
He was younger than Morgan Freeman has ever been.
Because Morgan Freeman has never been
He's
young.
never been young.
Oh
He
my
was born
God!
old. That's true.
We should try to Google young pictures of Morgan
There are
Freeman
none.
to see
I don't
what he
think they
looked like.
exist.
What did Morgan
I
Freeman
say
look
Idris
like?
Alba for Alex. Okay, anyway, so keep talking about
So
this
that's
book.
James Patterson. The other author being
Former
Bill
president.
Clinton. And the whole point of the book is that it happens inside of the White House. So there's a catch there.
Give details.
There's
What is the catch?
There's
there?
a catch there. Okay, this
Wait,
guy,
is the president missing?
the president goes missing to catch bad guys for a little while. However,
Okay.
Sorry.
really
Sorry,
soon,
sorry.
there are Secret Service agents around him.
Okay, so Barack Obama for like Alex Cross.
Yeah, something like that. No, the whole thing.
They will make a movie out of this, unless they have.
Of course,
already.
they will make a movie out of this. They'll make a big deal out of this. The whole thing about
And-
Bill
and
Clinton
Clinton will
the
do a
president-
cameo.
The whole Clinton and White House thing is,
Like Stanley.
yes,
style.
he probably, because we know he can talk and write, and he's very articulate. Former
He is an
President Clinton.
articulate. He was a Rhodes Scholar.
He's a very intelligent person. I'm a big fan of Bill Clinton. He's a very intelligent person. I'm sure he wrote this book, and James Patterson helped him edit it. And the whole plot of the president and his cabinet and his secretaries and how the relationship with Homeland Security is pretty much drawn from a lot of his experiences. So you can say that it's a little bit grounded on something that might be true. The whole plot of cyber terrorism and a huge computer virus is believable until a certain point. Okay. It gets a little
Till
bit.
a certain point.
No, he down browns it. There's what I was
Okay.
trying to do. Why is he down browning it?
He's Dan Browning it. Oi.
Dan Brown famous for the Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci
If you remember Angels and Demons, I've said this on this show before because I remember saying it. There's a point in Angels and Demons when the Pope, to save the Vatican or whatever, has to pilot himself
Yes.
a helicopter. The Pope is
Can you
piloting.
guys picture that?
Wow.
I mean, okay, maybe Francis, but Benedict.
Yeah, see, that's my Dan Brown. In this case, the President of the United States is the only one that figures out how to stop the computer
This
virus.
is kind of Tom Clancy
Instead of
too. Think
Okay,
about
let's
Jack
go- okay,
Ryan.
let's-
Think about Jack
I was gonna
Ryan.
go
This is
back to Jack-
Clancy-esque.
Jack Ryan.
Except
was
that Clancy was super right wing.
at the beginning, Jack Ryan was a really, really good character because there was an enemy. The enemy is back because it's Russia. But Jack Ryan, the origin of Jack Ryan in Tom Clancy's novels was there's always something coming out of Russia,
Yep.
and they're trying to destabilize. Oh my God, Jack Clancy is so current.
Clancy's so current.
To make a long story short, because I have digressed, I read
We've
the
been
whole
talking
book.
about American authors.
No,
though.
I read the whole
So-
book. The book is a beach read. It's James Patterson. It has James Patterson all over it. The fact that Bill Clinton co-authored it, or it's the principal author, might make it a little bit more interesting. It's not
Is that
the
an
best
unenlightening?
book. It's not the best book ever. It is good reading.
It's
I
a
read
read.
it.
It's a beach book. It's an
a beach
airplane book.
It's an airplane book.
There you
Do
go.
you have your plane book?
I don't have my plane book.
I do.
I need a plane book because we're traveling. Okay, so
We're
just
traveling
sidebar here.
so
I just googled young Morgan Freeman images,
What do you find?
like one, and I'm not even sure. I think it's like from his high school, but I'm not even so sure. The rest of them are like Morgan Freeman, old, and accused of #MeToo incidents. What else have you got for us? Tell us about technology.
Technology. Okay, Google launched this particular application or this particular idea a couple of. Well, it's been over 6 months or something. The whole thing is called Talk to Books. It's not a regular Google search. It's not something that you go into Google, you put a couple of subjects, and it'll answer with websites of where to find your subjects.
Okay.
The whole idea of Talk to Books is, and this is where it gets really interesting, it is completely AI. It is artificial intelligence. It's Google's first launch of an artificial intelligence for the public to
Okay.
use. You are supposed to ask a question, not just put words and subjects. Ask a question like you would really formulate a question, and Google and Talk to Books will find it in the over 100,000 books that it has picked to find answers for you. And the AI will, with its algorithm, try to find the most accurate answer to your
Wow.
question.
This is interesting.
The whole point, and I'm gonna try to find the guy's name because I was reading, and Ray Kurzweil, and who has the best and coolest job in the world because he is, you ready for this? Director of Engineering at Google Research.
Huh, that's kind of a cool
That's
job.
the coolest job ever.
Ever.
I think that guy has to
He's
be.
a big time genius.
That has to be the big, really, really smart guy. So the director of engineering at Google Research says, and I'm going to quote you, it's the idea that the AI is going to look for natural language understanding that maps semantically similar phrases to nearby points based on equivalence, similarity, or relatedness of ideas and language. It's a way to enable algorithms to learn about the relationships between words based on examples of actual language usage. The whole key point here is language usage. It's the idea that this AI is going to learn as Talk to Books is used more. It's going to learn more and get better at finding the correct answer for you. So what's Google...
And then Arnold Schwarzenegger will have to save us.
Judgment Day. It's inevitable.
Terminator, baby.
It's
It's
inevitable.
Terminator.
Like, I love the idea that in Terminator, Judgment Day can't be stopped. That whole concept behind the whole Terminator series is brilliant. No matter what you do, Judgment Day will come.
There you go.
Yes, when you get into a conversation about technology and artificial intelligence, that's one of the ideas that comes to mind. But it is really cool that Google is asking the public, and it's free out there as a Google concept.
So
for
you can it be
for
downloaded
you
to your
download
smartphone?
everything. Just go into Google, do Talk to Books. The search thing will come up to you. Ask a question. You will get a really, really accurate and good answer of what the AI of Google thinks would be the answer, found specifically in books. That's the other cool thing about it. It's not finding it in websites. It's really books. It's a selection of the best books ever written, or the best books that are out there,
Cool.
or academically out there, for you to get this. So that's Talk to Books, and that is Colombo's knowledge for this week.
That's pretty cool stuff. We're about to run out of time. We are not running out of time, DJ Paul. We
went through that.
This is so cool. Okay, so this is a new part, a new section in
Yes.
the Colombo CCARadio. Danny, tell us about this
Because
section.
he's the one that thought about
This is the brainchild of Danny
Danny
Valderrama.
Yay, I'm so excited about this new section. We want to do two things. Number one, we want to talk about our beautiful city, Bogota. There's so much to say about our city. There's history, there's curious facts, there's tourism. We were just talking about wine and food festival, for example. So we want to have a section that's devoted to interesting facts about Bogota. And also, we want our listeners to get to know a little bit more of our Colombo teachers. We can say without a doubt that we have the best teachers in the country. And we want our listeners to listen to our teachers. We want our listeners to know who they are. So we are asking one or two different teachers each episode, each show, to tell us a little bit about Bogota. So let's just listen to one of those clips right now.
Last week, Bogota celebrated its 480th anniversary from its foundation on August 6th, 1538, and we would like to take the moment to launch a new section in CCARadio. This is called How Well Do You Know Your City? This section will feature a different Colombo teacher each time and will present interesting information, historical facts, current trends, and hidden aspects of our city. Let's get back to the foundation of Bogota. In fact, we should say foundations because it was founded twice. Bogota had a symbolic, more military foundation on August 6, 1538, when Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada settled a military base in a strategic location known as Tizbacá, or Pueblo Viejo, now the Chorro de Quevedo, and celebrated the first Mass in Plaza de las Hierbas, today Parque Santander. The first name for the city was Nuestra Señora de la Esperanza. However, that foundation was not valid before the Spanish crown because it did not comply with all the legal requirements, such as creating a government structure called Cabildo. 1 year later, on April 27, 1539, the legal act of foundation took place in the presence of Sebastián de Belalcázar and Nicolás de Federman. Then its name was changed to Santa Fe. It was Simón Bolívar who changed the name of the city to Bogota in 1890, honoring the Muisca name for this region, Bogotá, which means Lady of the Andes or Lady of the Shining Mountain. My name is Lilia Fernanda Rocha, and I'm a Colombo teacher.
These are some curious facts about Bogota. The name originally means Lady of the Andes. That's the meaning of the name of our city. Colombia means Columbus land. Just curious facts about our culture and our identity. Now, you ever wonder why in Bogota we call beer pola? Why we do that? You ever wonder why people say tomar onces? We use that specific word with particular code. You're gonna learn about that in just a second.
Why do people in Bogota say tomar onces? For to have a snack? Why do they call a beer pola? It all goes back to the beginning of the 20th century when going to downtown Bogota to drink aguardiente became a popular plan for men. Their wives were not too happy about it, so they created a code with the number of letters in aguardiente. That is 11, which in Spanish is onces. So tomar onces was a secret code for drinking aguardiente. And during the same period, beer was mainly consumed by higher classes since it was a relatively expensive drink. In the celebration of the first 100th years of the proclamation of independence of Colombia, Bavaria wanted to increase their sales among middle and lower class people and launched an inexpensive, still good quality beer that they call La Pola, of course, after Policarpa Salabarrieta, the independence heroine. The product became so popular that having La Pola became a slang for drinking beer. My name is Oscar Castillo and I am a Colombo teacher.
So this is how well do you know your city?
That was awesome.
New section in our show.
I love that. And I've never heard Oscar speak Spanish. I didn't realize
Right.
he was actually truly Espanol when he
does
said
that thing.
onfish.
Yeah. He's fond of Hispanic culture.
I can see that.
So what's happening this week at the Colombo? We're gonna talk about a couple of important things that are happening. To begin with, this week we are finishing a cycle in the Adult English program, which is the program that operates on weekdays. And we are having registrations, matriculations for new students, well, both current students and new students. So if you want to join our program, you should come and take a classification interview at no cost, and then you will know what level you can register.
That's this week, starting on Thursday on the 16th.
The 16th, that's
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday until the 22nd from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Bummer. I
No,
won't be here on
Tuesday-
Saturday.
Tuesday and
Boo.
Wednesday. Sorry. Because Monday is a holiday.
That's right. Monday's a holiday.
Oh,
Woohoo!
So Monday
Yes,
the 20th is a holiday, so it's
Tuesday,
gonna be
Wednesday, and we
Tuesday the
start the
21st,
cycle on Wednesday.
And yes, first day of class will be Wednesday the 22nd. So
Exactly, yes.
there's registration until that day.
Yes. We're also having, this is a new activity that we're going to be having once a month, which is called Tardes de Blues y Jazz. Blues and Jazz.
That's pretty cool.
afternoons. It's a very cool activity. This is going to take place this Thursday, August 16th.
Here in
the
Nisa.
branch. This is
But
gonna
not
happen-
inside the
not
branch.
not inside the premises of the Colombo, but in the mall, in
that we're
Boulevard
located.
Mall, Avenida Suwa and 127th Street. And we're going to be doing this at 6 p.m. We're going to have two very talented
Leo
artists,
Calavera
Leo
is gonna be?
Calavera and Leonardo Pinzon. We're going to be with us.
Leo's been with us before.
Yeah.
Leo is an amazing harmonic player, harmonicist. I don't know if that's how you say it. He is absolutely amazing. It's totally worth coming. It's the little plaza right in front of the Colombo here on the third floor of Centro Comercial Boulevard.
And this Thursday, there's going to be
That's
Thursday. Yeah,
it.
concert. It's the Thursday.
No, it's Friday. 17th is Friday.
Of
He's-
course, because the 16th
Because the
is
16th,
Thursday,
exactly, and the 18th
17th
is Saturday, and that's
and
just the way it works.
And the 17th is the day after the 16th. So it's on Fridays, August the 17th at 7 p.m. downtown. We're going to have a concert by Efecto Ambar. which is indie rock, Bogota indie rock.
I just thought of a good reason for them to be called Efecto Ambar.
Because?
Because if you look at the poster, these are very, very talented musicians. I am in no way denigrating their musicianship. But if you look at the poster, they look like they're 13. Now, this could be the amber effect because when they were young, they were trapped in amber and stayed young. Just keep talking.
Or you saw a picture that was taken a lot.
Or a picture of them was taken through amber and it made them look younger. Anyway, Efecto Ambar.
It's the opposite of Morgan Freeman, who always looks old.
I'm telling you.
You see?
I'm going to try to find a Morgan Freeman.
I just did. I Googled it. Anyway, Efecto Ambar, downtown.
This Friday, the 17th at 7 p.m. Please come. Come here early because of these concerts do tend to get a large crowd.
They do. And starting this month, we have the call for proposals for Salón de Arte Soacha 2018. Our listeners will remember we've done Salón de Arte Soacha. This will now be the third edition for artists from Soacha to present their work so that in December, November-December, we can have the presentation of Salón de Arte Soacha, which then becomes itinerant and will be shown probably here in Niza in 2019 or perhaps in our new site.
That's right. This time we are extending the invitation, the call to artists from Soacha, Tocancipá, Funza, Cibate, pretty much all Cundinamarca.
So it's Salón de Arte Cundinamarca.
Yes, but we will first launch it in Soacha. So those of you interested, just contact us. You can also use the email Salón de Arte Soacha 2018 at gmail.com and send your proposal.
So remember, everybody, follow us in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. This is CCA Radio. Thank you so much to our production team, Andres, Daniela, DJ Pau, Jackie Carrillo, Danny Sanchez. Thanks to my table mates, the usual suspects, Pedro Lutz, Danny Valderrama. My name is Janet Van Dieren. This is CCA Radio. We're out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You are listening to CCA Radio. Live in English to live in English. Brought to you by Centro Coloma Americano. CCA Radio.